and he went into an opening which I like, even though then he had pressure, but that was a very nice moment. But for Maxime, for sure, you were mentioning about the Najdorf, he's going to be faithful to his opening.
Yes.
So if e4 comes, he's going to play the Najdorf. If d4 comes, he's going to play Grunfeld, and maybe c4 will come. We'll see. But he has his own repertoire against c4 as well. So.
We'll know shortly. But even if you just look at the body language of the player, you can see a very, very confident Magnus.
And actually, they are both born 1990, so clearly same age. And, Magnus has always been better, as a youngster. Even though Maxime was also a very fast starter as a youngster, he was very strong as well, but always a bit inferior to Magnus. So he's always had this kind of complex against Magnus. I remember the Young Masters tournament in Lausanne in Switzerland when both faced, I think it was 2005, and Magnus won easily. And you could feel Maxime was he didn't really believe in his chances. Of course, a lot of years have gone by, but in the back of his mind, this may kind of remain as a sort of, it's fate, Magnus is there, and I'm trying to fight. And it shouldn't be like this. You have to try. Of course, he has beaten him since, he has won a few really good games against Magnus, but the overall score is definitely in the favor.
And here we go.
World champion.
E4 on the board.
All right.
And of course, Maxime sticks to the Sicilian, and it's going to be a Najdorf.
Again, yes. Let's see if we have a repeat of the game 2 days ago. So far, so good. Bishop E3 as well. Knight G4.
No, Knight G4. We're going to do a little bit of a...
Yes.
Wow, this positional variation of Knight F3 has picked up so much steam this year. I see it all over the place nowadays.
Yeah, indeed. They have played in Biel last summer in Switzerland as well, and after E5, the world champion went to B3 with the knight instead of F3. So indeed, as you said, Alejandro, Knight F3, a more positional approach, not a line where white wants to kill his opponent with an attack. On the contrary, he's going to try and play for the control of this square on D5 here. If we get the analysis board, yes, this square on D5. So perhaps a move like Bishop G5 to trade off the knight on F6 in order to try and occupy this eventually with a piece. Actually, this is the type of positions which Magnus likes, really. He can maneuver his way, and especially in Blitz, he can play here a little bit, there a little bit. But Maxime is well prepared there as well, and he knows where he has to go.
But Yannick, you speak of the Magnus of the past. The Magnus of today just likes to give checkmate.
He likes to give checkmate, that's true, but he hasn't forgotten how to play technically. Yeah, of course, and from time to time, I'm sure he certainly enjoys his quiet little technical grinding win.
As you mentioned, Bishop G5 on the board.
And Knight BD7 to give support to the colleague there on F6. So in case white takes on F6, he wants to take back with the knight and keep control on D5. This is basically the debate in this game. Who is going to win the control of this square on D5? Because if, let's say white plays that, just let's imagine something like this. What he doesn't want is to take with the pawn. That's something he doesn't like. So Carlsen actually improves his position first and plays Rook E1.
Defending the E4 pawn?
Just in case. You have to develop your pieces. The rook on A1 is not yet in play. You need to find a square for your queen. He's played bishop. No, he's played A3 simply.
Yeah, because rook E1 is also very important against threats like rook C3 and B4, just to keep E4 under control.
Yeah, that's right. This pawn on E4 is always a source of trouble for white in the Sicilian. So it's actually good to protect it, overprotect it in a way. H6, asking the bishop, do you want to take? Do you want to go back? On H4, it doesn't really look too good. Normally, you want to take, but if the knight is on D7, then it's not really a big deal for... well, he does take it, and knight takes back. The time situation favorable at the moment for the Frenchman, something like 40 seconds up. Nothing really telling so far, but still something which you know, we were looking at Magnus' rhythm in the first game against Bassem Amin, and we noticed that he was a slow starter. I mean, he didn't really find his rhythm.
So the move knight d2 is aimed at knight f1, bringing the knight to e3 to get more control over the light squares?
Exactly, Tanya. You've seen that right. Coming to e3 and try to control d5. Bishop g4, quite, I think, a clever idea to try and provoke f3, which he has managed. There is a check on b6, king h1 have been played, if I can see.
Knight f1 on the board, following the plan.
So we are moving ourselves, looking at what's happening.
Feels like black got a relatively comfortable position, yes.
Yeah.
a5, a4, a5, b4 in the works. Yes, you're going to get d5 eventually, but it's not the end of the world. We've seen, well, so many Sveshnikov games where I can just give you this square. And, well, it's a nice one for your knight, but even if you get a knight there, it's not going to just win the game automatically. It seems like Maxime's able to get some pressure on the queen side in return.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting moment. They've been just moving, but actually black could always exchange on b3 here, c takes b3, but he doesn't really want to do this because he releases the control of d5 a bit. And rook c5 is a move I like.
Doubling up on the c file and eyeing that rook c3 sacrifice that Maxime likes so much.
And also, you know, controlling once more d5. Sorry to insist on that square, but it's definitely...
And he's gone for rook c3.
Oh,
fearlessly.
Wow. But, you know, objectively, I'm not sure about the value of this exchange sacrifice, but in Blitz, it's extremely unpleasant because it changes completely the character of the position. It's going from a positional game to a rather wild game. I mean, black certainly has some positional compensation. He has a pawn for the exchange, which is already something not too bad. He's also gotten rid of this knight on c3, so that means that the square on d5 is probably never going to be a problem. And remember the little move bishop g4 earlier to provoke f3. It's weakened a bit the dark squares here all around, and dark squares are important in Najdorf, so we never know if this bishop on e7 at the moment slightly inactive, but he's played queen c6. He might want to play bishop d8, bishop b6, you know, trying to come there at some point.
That's a nice maneuver.
And a4, this is also very clever. I like this move because he wants to open this rook on a1 doesn't do anything. So the question for Maxime now, should he allow the exchange on b5 and the opening of the a file?
And it's a good time to calculate because the other option besides ba4 is b4,
exactly.
But he has to have a plan against knight d1.
Oh, b4 knight d1 is a trick. Because this pawn cannot be defended, and well, if you have to go,
he's gone for
and
b4.
He's gone for it. We're going to go into this position. Bishop b3 instantly played. This is very clever. Notice that after knight takes c3, he has to move bishop c4
on the board.
The player's being very, very fast. Still down the exchange for Maxime, but his piece placement is very good. You can see we have this quick updates after queen takes e2. Maxime has blitzing out d5. And his position is just coming together.
Yeah. At the moment, look at the white pieces. The queen is doing all right, but the knight and the rook, totally, a total lack of coordination. I mean, and that it means it will take time for them.
But it is still tense. Material is very reduced, which means that eventually I'll coordinate my pieces. Still a rook against a bishop. In the long run, this is very bad for Maxime. He needs to keep up some kind of pressure to... well, claim the compensation. The computers are saying it's not enough, that the rook will eventually prevail, but a long road ahead.
And the time situation is very, very equal. Both have slightly more than 2 minutes, which is actually good for Magnus, I would say, because the position is rather tense. So he needs that little extra time to figure out how to coordinate his pieces. He decided to take on d5.
And I like this with queen e4, centralizing that powerful piece. You can see that's a beautiful queen, just taking control all over the board, defending c2, taking control of the diagonal, putting pressure on the knight.
Yeah. And he didn't want to take on e5. He could have tried to take on e5, but this would be quite dangerous because of bishop f6. He needs to get
king h7, and the c2 pawn hangs, and the a1 rook is under attack. Rook c1 runs
Yeah, but
runs
now
into bishop g5.
in this position, he has 3 pieces which are completely discoordinated.
Yes.
The queen is not centralized anymore. And Alejandro mentioned queen e4 beautifully centralizing the queen, and that's very important. The queen in the center, like, radiates all over the board. And
Queen e6, just moving away so that you can free the knight.
I think Maxime found this queen e4 quite uncomfortable to react to, because he took about 30 seconds to play queen e6. And I believe that Magnus is taking over a little bit. It's not yet done, of course, but he has stabilized, and you can see he's really focused.
Just a quick update, the way he did draw his game against Sergei Karyakin. We'll take a look at that game eventually. Not a very exciting game there.
Thank you, Alejandro. Yes, because we are definitely focusing on this big game, Carlsen, Vachier-Lagrave, but 4 other games are running, and they may be very important also for the standings and the fight for second place. Knight c3 played now.
Of course, Black wants to avoid all trades because that would mean that White would stand better the more trades that take place.
And you see Magnus is kind of
insisting.
Kind of blackmail. I want an exchange, so I put your queen under pressure now, queen c4. And Maxime has to get away from that. He's played
maintain
queen
the
g6.
pressure.
Queen g6 is quite clever, but somehow his pieces feel active, but he has vulnerable points in his position, starting with the pawn on b4, which means it's difficult to play bishop g5 or such moves.
a5, I like this move because you want to free that rook on a1. And he's also made a6 a weakness.
And we have
the rook
king
can come
h7.
into the game next. King h7, and now rook e1.
This is a good move to play in Blitz, king h7, avoiding checks.
All checks.
And rook e1, finally bringing that rook
I think
into
White
play.
has really managed to coordinate his pieces now.
He's done well. Magnus has done really well. And the exchange sacrifice by Maxime was very interesting,
but guys, we're talking about this like it's a normal position. He's down the exchange.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just not creating the counterplay that he needs to.
Well, he hasn't managed, mostly thanks or because of Magnus' composure and ability to find a way to coordinate his pieces within just seconds. I mean, it's just Blitz game. It's not easy. I can easily imagine me collapsing totally with White there.
And perhaps this rook takes c3 move, you think it's a Blitz game, you get the initiative, you start playing well, but Magnus has coolly taken that exchange, and every move he is diffusing Black's position. This one I'm not so sure about, allowing this check. The Bishop saying it's a great move to just, they don't care about this.
King f1.
Knight h3, king
he
f1.
runs away with king f1.
And that is such a cool-headed way of playing chess.
Unbelievable.
He's just running his king up the board. Even moves like queen d5, that doesn't work. Does queen d5 not work?
There's a rook e5.
Rook e5 at the end. Did he like see all this in half a second? He just blitzed this out.
Let's look at this line. Let's put the king on the right square. Perhaps f1.
Queen e5 is a very good move, though. That king is vulnerable. He's just blitzed into this. I understand he has seconds, but his king is in the middle of the board. Even if this is objectively winning.
It's a very dangerous line to get into with seconds.
It's a very dangerous way of playing.
And that's a situation.
And now knight f4.
I mean, Maxime can be very, very tricky in these lines. And for sure, this thing didn't work out the way Magnus really wanted. He was very close, but now it's a bit messy because the king is going. Okay, he has to go back to f1.
Not just a messy position, a messy clock situation as well. Both players are down to 20 seconds.
Takes it, the nerves of steel of this guy. He just takes on a6 with queen h2. I mean, he's like a computer. Who takes on a6 in that position?
And what does the computer say, by the way, Alejandro?
That taking on a6 is horrible, actually. Queen h2, and now the king is too vulnerable. It thinks that Maxime has equalized. Yes, his pawn is running, but the bishop's going to come to c5, and it's a great bishop. It attacks the king.
He's gone bishop h4.
That is an ambitious move.
So queen h1 is the threat?
Bishop h4 is actually winning.
What?
Yeah, queen h1 is a big, huge
because you can't
threat.
really stop knight f4 and queen h1.
Oh my.
This is Maxime. He's amazing.
Maxime monster.
Maxime is amazing.
Oh, queen d2, look at how he played the move. He actually even apologizes for it. But after knight f4, what is his plan? He has no way of defending his queen.
It's over.
He resigns.
Oh, Maxime.
What a turnaround.
My God.
2 games in a row.
The king, that's so important in Blitz.
But that's the thing about Najdorf. You can't care about sacrificing. You can't think so much